This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत एफएम.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one-of-its-kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sphurti, shakti and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
Hello, Lakshmi.
Hello,
How are you?
I am good. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. I just realized that I talked about you, but I was not in the stream. So before we start our conversation, I would like to repeat the introduction that I gave to our audience. Uh, so, to all our viewers, today is the first episode of Decoding Victory. And in our first episode, we are in conversation with Laxmikant Garg and his family, who recently published a book, A Nightmare on December 23rd, 7,145 Miles and a Million Little Steps. During this first ever dialogue with the authors, we will get a sneak peek into their experience and process of writing this universally related book. In their debut memoir, the family recounts a successful life after defying the expectations of their small village in India. This book is a true reflection of their passion for the American dream, an imperfect path to success, and the various vulnerable moments in their path to leadership in business, medicine, and finance. With that, welcome, Lakshmi.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashish, for the introduction and really privileged to be on your show.
And we are very thankful for having you on our show as the very first guest on Decoding Victory. This is a new segment that we have started, wherein we talk about the success path of people all around the globe, and you are the first one. So thank you very much for coming today on this show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the very first question that I have for you is why this book and what is this all about?
Okay, so a little bit about myself before I go into the book. First of all, for the viewers, I am not a celebrity here. I am an accountant by profession, and I currently work as a managing director of one of the global consulting firms based out of New York. And in my free time, I play piano and write about my experiences in life. And maybe someday we will see piano on your show. I also sit on the board of directors and board of trustees of large not-for-profit organizations, both in the US and in India. So giving something back for the community. I come from a small village in Bathinda, as you said during the introduction. Bathinda has become popular in some of the Bollywood movies through a fun reference for our people who are listening. I spent about 20 years of my life in Bathinda. I did my high school there, I did my college there. So no IIT, no IIM, no Delhi University, no Snowar School, no Doon School. We didn't even know the names of these schools, let alone any American schools at that point. After that, I spent about 15 years in some other parts of India, including Chandigarh, Delhi, and we will talk a little bit about that struggling period of life. And in 2007, I put my foot in the United States, my American dream. So in the last 13 years, I grew up to be where I am today. So that's very little about myself. So why this book, right? I will talk about that in a couple of parts. The preamble, the main preamble is, I like to believe that we learn, Ashish, from each other.
Of course.
We have read biographies of Gandhi, Martin Luther King. There are no other Gandhis. There are no other kings in the world, right? But where you and I are, million others are aspiring to be, and they can reach up to that level of success. So that's the preamble, and that's the theme behind my book, to help others who were in the same boat as I was once. The second preamble is, I grew up in the world of, some societal evils and myths and some self-obsessed views about our society, whether Indian society or developing countries society or even American society, right? We heard things about different cultures. And I wanted to open those doors, and I wanted to, through my experiences, show to our viewers or listeners or the readers what my experiences were in India, in US, in the corporate culture, in the education system and all that stuff, in a family dynamics.
Mhm.
So with that preamble, now comes to the point that what triggered, right? When did I start writing the book? So it's back in 2017 or 2018, I was sitting in Bathinda, and one of the friends, he said, Lakshmi, how did you do it? I advise my sons and daughters that if Lakshmi can do it sitting in Bathinda, why can't you, right? So he wanted to understand a little bit about demystify what you did. He reminded me of an incident that, remember one day we went to a bookseller in Bathinda during college, and you asked the bookseller that, can you buy a mathematics textbook in Hindi or Punjabi? And the bookseller said, if you can't read math in English, you should drop commerce. And then in the very same year, I was sitting here with my colleagues in the United States, and we had a conversation around some education aspects of countries in India, US. And during one of the conversations, she said that, Lakshmi, why did you advise your daughters not to get 98% out of 100? It's very atypical for an Asian. We all see that, Asian community, they are after the hardcore academics and all that stuff.
I agree.
And then I thought, there are so many answers to that. And that kind of triggers that, okay, let me write a little bit about it. And maybe people will get some benefit out of it. So coming to the book, right? What's there in the book? Friday, and today we are talking about Sunday, and Friday, I got a feedback from one of the readers in Turkey. You won't believe our book is sitting in Turkey as well, where a lot of social media doesn't exist and even Amazon link couldn't reach. She said, Lakshmi, when I started the book, I was like, what will I get out of it? And then once I started reading it, I kept crying and crying and crying. I'm like, oh my God, I did something bad to you. She said, no, it's not because what's written in the book or what you have gone through or your struggles and everything, but it's because I have seen myself in the book throughout.
Wow.
So the book is not yours. Book belongs to the entire generation, entire Eastern culture. All the people, the struggle that they have gone through. It's everyone's story. And the second thing is, similarly, I like to call it almost like an internship. In my small villages and towns, people try to find internships, right, in the early stages of the career. And I say that this could almost be an experiential learning and looking at the experience of others, that what they have gone through, and maybe translating it a little bit into their lives. Especially as I touched upon the aspect of 98 out of 100, that there is something called imperfect path to success. All the time we read books, 7 ways to success, 9 ways to reach the moon, 10 ways to breach, coronavirus. I mean, I start wondering that, are there real 7 ways to success? There are millions and billions of ways to success. And there is no one defined path. So this is where I think the book does some kind of justice, that it walks through the experiences of life to the person who are in the same boat. And a lot of other things, I don't want to go into the details and take all the time myself. I will let others speak, but that's a little bit about the book and why I have put it in the book.
Okay. So with that, I would like to welcome Beth Cantor, who is the development editor, and I will let her talk about her role in the book and her perspective about the book.
Hi.
Welcome, Beth.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for being here on this wonderful discussion that we are going to have. So tell us a little bit about your role in the book and what is your perspective around it.
Absolutely. I think when Lakshmi and I first met, the book was about 45,000 words. Is that right? And it's about double now. And we talked. So what I do, I among other things, I teach writing workshops, and I also work one-on-one with people to write their stories. And I think I described this to you when we first spoke. I feel like I'm sort of like a midwife for the story, right? It's still the person's story. They do the hard work, and the baby is theirs at the end. But I help you to safely work out the story. And I love that your show is called Decoding Victory. I feel like, in a way, writing a book is decoding a victory. It's no small task to take on to write your story. And this book is such a triumph in really exploring the details, big, and I think almost more significantly small, because I think it's the small details that actually, the small moments, the quiet moments that really bring us to who we are. And I think in writing, it's the small moments that attach us to the reader. So I think when I first saw the manuscript, we talk about reading between the lines. I think we started to write between the lines. And that's the beautiful process of writing. And so what Lakshmi presented were all these wonderful moments. And I got to look at them as anyone who's writing a story needs to have somebody, I think, a trusted friend, an editor, a writer, many, many eyes to say, oh, look, like this moment feels really big. So I'm thinking early on in the book, there's one moment where in the original manuscript where Lakshmi just mentioned his grandfather and the pipe organ, and there was a lot of emotion, and it was about 1 or 2 sentences, and I think that was the first place where we slowed it down, and I said, I think there's a lot more here, and this is human connection. This is universal, right? So many of us have somebody in our lives like that sparked creativity, that took care of us, that had that special relationship. Often it's a grandparent. I think a lot of people can relate to that. But in, all families, it's different. So we slowed it down, and then I couldn't believe when he began to tell me his grandfather's story. And I said, okay, this is the first place we're going to slow down. Or, obviously it's his book, but he said, yes, there's so much here. So we did a lot of that, and it's just a really beautiful tribute to not only the hard work that is outlined in this book, but I think the hard work that you don't see of writing the book and undertaking it and going back and drafting. And it's, I think it's a sort of a misconception that people sit down and just write a book and it flows out and it's one draft. It's many, many, many revisions and going back, taking out sentences, putting back, going backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. Does this work? Does that work? So Lakshmi worked incredibly hard and was always up, for trying to tell the story in a different way and to really bring the focus down to these smaller moments, these quiet moments that sometimes get lost in the big story. And I think that's why this book connects with so many people, is because it has heart and you're not afraid to show yourself and to be vulnerable at points. And
Right.
and that's what connects us as people.
That is true. So one thing I'm very curious about, and either of you can answer to that, is the title of the book. First of all, why A Nightmare on December 23rd? But at the same time, it does not mention the year, it just mentions the date. So what is the story around that?
Beth, you want to go about it, or should I
Why
take
don't you
it?
go?
Okay.
You talk about it.
And we can talk during the conversation as well. But, the book, you may call it an autobiographical book, but it's not really an autobiography. It's everybody's book. So it has a mystery. It has a family drama. It has a suspense. It has a literature to find what author wants to convey. It's a fun story. And it's an autobiography. It's nonfiction at the end of the day. So we needed to mix two things into the title. And believe it or not, all 4 of us spent hours together talking about the title. And we had 5 or 6 shortlisted titles, and finally we came to that. And Beth contributed a lot in finding us the appropriate title. So the first part of the title describes the moment where the book started, right? December 23rd. We go into a flashback and describe that moment throughout the book. We connect it. It's a life-threatening moment, how we started. On December 23rd, it creates some sort of suspense in the minds of readers as to what exactly happened. The author is still alive. And there are multiple moments that happened actually on December 23rd in the book. So that's the reason we didn't write a year. And let the readers judge which moment they want to call it as a nightmare of December 23rd.
Oh, okay.
And the second part of the title is 7,145 miles. And actually, Beth sent me that part. Bathinda to New York is exactly 7,145 miles. So
that I kind of guessed.
We are trying to describe a journey of those miles converted into million steps. The book starts in Bathinda and book ends in Bathinda.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lakshmi, for sharing that. Now, with that, I would like to welcome Noemi Garg, who is a co-author of the book and also elder daughter for Lakshmi. And we will let her tell us a little bit about her role in the book and why she got herself associated. Welcome,
Hi,
Noemi.
everyone. Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I think this is a great platform for all of us to share our story and behind the scenes of what happens when we're writing a book as a family, that too. So yeah, just to go ahead and talk a little bit about myself. I want to start off by saying I'm a millennial, so I represent that generation and what this book means for us. So I wanted to make sure that I get that across, that I'll be kind of representing that kind of mindset a little bit. So specifically, I'm a University of Michigan grad and alum. I did my bachelor's there, and currently I'm in medical school. I just finished my my first year. I'm going into my second year of medical school. So to talk a little bit about how I got involved, I think I've been in the process right from the get-go, right from the very beginning. My dad was initially, the very first works of this was even before the manuscript, in writing in his diary. And that's when I got involved. He was just writing accounts of his life experiences, and he asked me to kind of read it and see what I thought about it and give him my feedback. And immediately, as soon as I started reading those stories, I saw lots of potential, lots of inspiration, especially for our generation. And I want to, since I'm in medicine, I want to talk a little bit specifically that burnout is such a common theme and hot topic in medicine. Physicians, residents, interns, medical students, everyone faces it at some point in their life. And we're always looking for ways to find inspiration. And that doesn't have to be someone in medicine either, just any kind of inspiration. And I think this story does just that, even for people like us. You know, it's going to pull us out and give us that inspiration to continue and keep moving forward. So that's pretty much how I got involved. In terms of my role in the book, so like you mentioned, I'm a co-author. But my main role was really just to take those accounts in his diary and start converting them into short little anecdotes and stories that we can present. And that's kind of how the book goes. Even though it accounts his entire journey, it's in the form of short little stories that happen throughout his life. And we tried to make those stories, present different emotions. Like my dad mentioned, there's some fun stories. One of the really fun ones that I enjoyed the most was like when my dad and his father went out to go get samosas at the street corner. So those were some fun moments that we presented. There's also a lot of drama in this story, for those drama-loving people, big fights, family drama, all kinds of things that you see in soap operas. We included that stuff too. There's, of course, there's some cringy moments. Our goat room is really popular. Everybody wants to know what the goat room's all about. And then there's sad moments. Of course, my dad mentioned the story starts with suspense, so there's definitely that. So yeah, we tried to present in ways that different readers can enjoy our work and we can reach more of an audience.
Thank you. Thank you, Naomi, for that. And with that, I would like to welcome the producer of the audiobook. I also know that you have an audiobook, and we will talk with Theresa Garg about her role in the writing process and why she got herself associated with writing and how and why she produced an audiobook. So, welcome, Theresa.
Hi, thank you so much for having us here once again.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Theresa Garg. I am a high school junior at High School North in Plainsboro, New Jersey, and I'm a qualified musician. I play two instruments, the piano and the violin. And as for my role in the book, I was mainly involved in the later stages. So not so much as the writing. I did work with professional proofreaders to proofread the book and to edit the language to make it appealing to my generation as well. But I was mainly involved when a close family friend of ours came up after reading the book, and he said to me, you know what, one day we're going to make a movie out of this book. And I was like, wow, I want to be part of that experience. And so I thought, well, to take the first step in like that Hollywood dream life or anything, I thought let's do something a little easier, something I can handle. And I thought let's produce an audiobook. And what's so special about our audiobook is that it's basically a movie without the video. You know, it's normal audiobooks have like one narrator who's just reading the story. But for us, there's a narrator who acts the story. And there's a lot of other people involved too. There's not just one speaker who's acting the story, there's multiple. And there's also special guest appearances where those people that are in the book play the role that they did in his life. And there's a lot of background music, which my dad plays some of the music. I play some of the music, so that's very special to us to carry on our music legacy. And there's a lot of sound effects. You know, you can really hear like the chimes of the temple or mandir in Bathinda versus the waves of Hawaii in America. And right now, I'm working on marketing the book. I will be running a kiosk at our local mall to engage more readers in hearing our story.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So, from the technology perspective, how easy or difficult was it to create an audiobook and then market it accordingly? And why would, what is the difference between actually reading the book yourself and going with the audiobook?
Well, to talk about the technology first, I'm really techie, so I like to like explore different platforms like iMovie or GarageBand. And I was very lucky to have another family friend who's sort of in that business, who like does this for a living. And I was taking like advice from him on how to make it. And as for why it's different, you can really hear the emotion from like acting the story versus just reading it. You know, if you read the story, you're like, oh, okay, that happened, that happened, that happened. But when you're acting it, you can really hear the emotion behind that, the thought process of writing that. And I don't know if my dad or my sister wants to add something to help me here.
Yeah,
Okay.
so really quickly, I just want to mention that the biggest thing with audiobooks, it's very an up and coming kind of thing that's happening in the world these days. And I think the biggest thing that everyone gets attracted to is the fact that you can be doing other things while you're listening to the audiobook, right? Reading a book, you kind of have to focus on the reading the book. You can't really be doing much else. So with the audiobook, you know, put in your earphones and then cook, work out, whatever it is you want to do, whatever. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much the biggest thing.
And one small thing I would add here, Ashish, is every night when I go to sleep, I listen to one episode of the audiobook myself.
Nice.
I mean, it's so much ingrained into us, right? And the tears come out sometimes from my eyes, and sometimes, you know, the audiobook keeps running and I just go to sleep, because it's everyone's story. Everyone can do it. Sometimes during driving, we put it on the audiobook on and see that and cherish those moments.
Right. So let me ask you this. You mentioned that you listen to one episode every night. Now, what happens? It's a human tendency that when you listen to something or read something again and again, something new will come to your mind. Does that happen to you where you listen to it and you feel that, oh, I missed something, or I could have done better on this thing? Does that happen to you? And if it does happen, what do you do about it?
Yeah, so I'll write another book about it. Absolutely. It happens all the time that not specifically about what we missed in the context of that story, but there are hundreds of behind the scene things that, you know, as Beth mentioned, when we started with a manuscript of 20,000 words, we reached up to 70,000 words, and then we cut it down to 50,000 words, right? So specifically on that part, right, there are situations when I come across that maybe, you know, in mathematics, we learn that there are angles, right, against each other. I don't know what angle we call about, but this book can be written completely differently if I flip the stories and talk about some other moments from the same stories, right?
I see.
So
Okay.
all those things come into our mind, and a lot of readers, they have started saying that, Lakshmi, now forget about this, start writing another one.
Another book.
Yeah, and I just want
Nice.
to add one quick little thing, that it's not just about like when we're listening to the audiobook. For us, that started happening right when we were making the audiobook,
That's
when we
right.
got all those actors to start performing and saying the lines, we immediately started thinking, oh, this could have happened, or this could have happened. So yeah, it's not just like for us, especially because we were in the making of the audiobook as well. So we started feeling all of that very early on.
So the actors that you mentioned who are reading out the book, are those people who actually love acting, or is that from the family where you decided that somebody has been passionate about acting for a long time and they want to try it out, and that's why they were reading the book? How did that go?
It's both ways, actually. There are people, when we called a family at home and we told them, hey, we are shooting an audiobook, and you won't believe, 7-year-old child, he said, oh, I want to act, right? And he's passionate about it. And okay, I said, okay, let me see if you can act 7-year-old me in the book when my grandfather episode is going on, right? And he did an amazing job. So that's one aspect of it. And the other thing is, as I said, there are families and there are friends, there are people who are passionate about acting, and there are people who just loved. They are like, probably we will keep doing about it. And there are moments when they were not able to act the way it is written. So a lot of behind the scenes moments.
All right, excellent. That's very interesting. Now we have Bitan Basu. She is a part of Bharat FM. She is an RJ on our Bengali segment. And she mentioned in the comments that she is extremely interested to listen to the audiobook. How how can she get that?
Darcy, you want to speak about it, but at this point, the audiobook production is just finished and the legal review is complete. We have obtained all the copyrights and IPRs. Darcy is the official producer. And the next step is, at this point, what I can do is, Ashish, I will share with you the password to our website where the
Okay,
entire audiobook is there for a
okay,
limited audience, right? Because we have not officially published it yet.
correct.
The text is out on Amazon.
Okay,
Now, as a next step, what Darius is doing is she is working with Audible, she is working with iTunes, and she is working with other media platforms to officially publish the audiobook. And it should be done by the beginning of the summer.
perfect, perfect. Thank you. So, Bitan, that answers your question. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this wonderful conversation that we're having right now. Okay, so Lakshmi, now tell us a little bit about your childhood. I mean, you mentioned a little bit, but about your childhood inspirations and maybe one of the stories.
Yeah, so there are 4 parts to the book, and the first part is entirely my childhood in Bathinda specifically. And I'll touch upon a little bit about the social aspects and family dynamics during this conversation. Ashish, I was born with a curse.
Why do you
The
say that?
curse in the family was that no 2 brothers can survive in the family. So that's the mindset at that point. Such male dominant society. Um, don't want to go into the other stuff, but my mother used to hear gossip from the village that you are cursed, you won't get a second son. My great grandfather was one son, my grandfather was one son, my father had a brother who got killed at the age of 8. And then when I was born, they said probably he will not survive, right? People just don't
Wow.
want to believe it. So I was very protected in the family. I still don't know how to swim because my mother protected me from going nearby the ponds or the rivers and canals because my father's brother drowned to death in the nearby pond. So that was the curse. It reflects the mindset of the society.
Hmm.
I grew up during the Punjab problem, as you may all know,
84?
late
84, yeah.
70s, 80s.
81, yeah.
In 1984, I was in sixth grade, and pretty much all my childhood went through that. As far as the inspirations are concerned, it starts with my grandfather, as Beth touched upon that aspect. And a lot of people, a lot of readers reach out to me. We wish we knew your grandfather. He was not formally educated. He was a musician in the town. I remember the days when he used to take swings. I used to take swings on his legs, and he used to teach me the mathematics tables and make small deals with me. If I, learn that table, I can wake him up early. But one incident I remember is he used to take me to the nearby train station in our town, and we used to just sit on the overbridge or stand on the overbridge and look at the trains. He showed me the train to Delhi.
Okay.
That, look, this train goes to Delhi. One day, we all will go to Delhi. Do you want to go there? So that was the time. And 15 years later, I took the same train to Delhi. And 15 years later, I took a plane to New York.
Wow.
So that was the first inspiration. He taught me the Sare Gama Padhani ABCD of music. And you will see during the later part of the conversation that the legacy continues. The most inspiring story I would say about from my childhood was my middle school principal. He gave us a chance to run the school for one day. And a lot of people, and the students, they raise their hands, or I will take Hindi class, I will take English class, I will ring the bell, I will open the gate, I will, be the office clerk and all that stuff. And after a minute or two, all the positions were gone. And for some reason, I was one of the favorite students of the principal, and I was also followed by the other students. Satish, he was my best friend, and he was sitting right there in the class. I started rolling that why Lakshmi is not saying anything. And then after a minute or so, principal glanced at me. He said, "Oh, wait a second. We have one more role to go. Who will be the principal?" And then I immediately raised my hand. So not only my leadership journey started that day, but it also showed the faith and trust of the other students and the teachers in me. And it also taught me when to speak up. Right? A lot of times we speak up too early, and a lot of times we just do not speak up. Right? And we miss those opportunities. And the same stories continued, right? A lot of times I hear from people that, oh, those were the days, right? Those were the teachers. Those were the friends. The friends do exist. Teachers do exist even today. You just need an eye. You just need an eye. Right? So my book is either positive stories or negative stories converted into positive stories. I'll stop here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Lakshmi. All right. So, Naomi, the next question is for you. You mentioned that the book is it's a fun reading. What's the fun part? What's the fun part in an autobiographical book?
Yeah, so I mean, I think just because it's somebody's life account, it doesn't mean that it can't be fun, right? There are definitely a lot of fun stories, and especially like moving around so much. My dad's life specifically, that just comes with a level of fun. But to share one specific story and experience that I thought was really incredible in the book, and probably one of my favorite scenes that we ended up writing, was, like I mentioned earlier, the Smosa story with my dad and his father. And basically, just to set the scene for you a little bit, my father's father owned a shop in Bathinda, and there was near the shop, right around the street corner, was a samosa wala that used to come every day. And my grandfather was a foodie, a total foodie, loved to eat, those golgappas, pani puri, samosas, aloo chaat, whatever it may be. He was a total foodie. So he would go with my dad and grab these samosas. But the tricky part is they would be sneaking out. So it's for the readers to decode who they're sneaking out from. It's like the head of the family. Why is he sneaking out? Who does he need to kind of go away from? So I think that's what makes the story fun. And underneath all of that, of course, there's, we're telling you about the family dynamics there, and what it may be like for two people to sneak out that way. But on the face of it, it's just a story about a dad and his son going out and sneaking out to get samosas.
That's very interesting. Can I guess? Is it his wife he was thinking of?
No. It is not. It is not, Ashish. That's the best part, because we see that in a lot of Bollywood movies, right? Sometimes the female dominance in the society. But yeah, readers should read it.
Okay, excellent. I just wanted to make the moment a little lighter. All right. So, Darisi, you mentioned that there are hidden meanings in the stories. Give us an example and maybe share a story that has a dual meaning.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of episodes that come to mind, but I think I'm going to talk about the animal shelters because that's a fan favorite. This episode is one that is, people call it gross. I call it cringy, but it's very relatable and it's very fun. And one of our reviews on our website even say that if for nothing, read this book just to know about the goat room. So I think this is a very important chapter. The importance of this chapter is threefold. So number one, it's the integral part of the struggle. He's my dad, he's not in his village in Bathinda, but nor is he in America, living his dream. It's sort of the go-between. He's in the limbo, you would say. And it's really important to know that, again, my dad wasn't from a poor family. So the second importance comes to mind, where what was the mindset that he has to spend his life, that part of his life in this room that has dirt on the ground, that has urine stains on the walls, that they had to move a goat out of the room for my dad to inhabit it. So that's very important. And the readers might question, well, if he knows that those are the circumstances where he's living, then why not just go back to the village? What was he so afraid of back in the village that he said, no, I have to persevere and I have to go on and I have to live through this? So I think, yeah.
Yeah, just to add a little bit, right? For our American listeners, we go to escape room, right, for fun. It's right. A popular concept with the team.
Right.
There is a zombie, right, ready to attack, and we are in the dark room. We are trying to find the clues, and we have to find a key to open the door and get out of the room, right? I almost personify that experience with the escape room type experience. It's fun, right? Yet you are tense, and the anxiety is there to find the key, and it's a teamwork.
Yeah, and just to add on to that analogy of the escape room, we all know that when you go to the escape room, you go with a bunch of friends. It's a team effort, really. And even in the story in the book, it's a team effort. We are introduced to two really the key characters of the book. One is my dad's mother, who lived with him in that goat room. She sacrificed her very comfortable life back in Bathinda so that she can help him through it. And then the second main character, who ends up being the person who pulls him out of the escape room, who tends to be the key essentially in this escape room, is his best friend, who he met there at the first time. And he introduced him to a different side of the world, to his family, etc. So
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Uh, sorry, Beth, you have been quiet for a while. It's your turn now.
Yes.
So,
I'm so enjoying listening to it. It's a pleasure. You can
yeah.
see.
So what I wanted
It's
to know
such
is,
a pleasure to work with this family.
yeah, that is true. So how was your experience with the authors during the writing journey? Like, if you can share, like maybe behind the scene moment. I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
yeah,
I'd be happy to. I mean, I think you, as I was saying, you can get a sense of how well this family works together and how much love and respect there is. And, you know, I just feel very lucky that I was invited along for the journey and I got to experience this along the way and see it unfold and see the final product and see a family working so well together. I was thinking a lot actually about when we were working on the book, kept sort of looking and finding circles, you know, so the music at the beginning and then the music at the end, and the journey of leaving and the journey of leaving again, right? Like first to Delhi and then to New York. So I think that was sort of something that came up behind the scenes a lot, or these sort of unseen connections that become complete, like wait a minute, how did we not see this from the very beginning? And sort of, it's almost like watching, if you've ever taken, like with kids or something, the lemon juice and write a secret message and the sun makes the message come out. It felt like that, like sort of, so there was a lot of just these wonderful moments of uncovering something that just was kind of meant to be. And I particularly enjoyed that and enjoyed really, so much of writing is talking, actually. It's kind of the essence of the process. We think it's about putting words on the page, which it ultimately is, but so much is pre-writing, is talking through the story. So I'd say that there was a lot of that, and you don't get to see everything on the page, and that's the point, right? It's like an iceberg. You see the top and there's all this stuff on the bottom. So just really getting to see everything under the water, all this beautiful foundational information and discussion and family history was a real pleasure.
awesome. So Lakshmi mentioned that there is an instance that needed a lot of back and forth.
Okay.
And do you want to mention that it's a particular episode in the book where you had to go a lot of back and forth, and why did you have to do that?
Which instance with that?
I think specifically the grandfather episode.
Oh, yes.
Beth, you touched upon that a little bit.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, so you already mentioned that. It's the same.
Right. I think it really was a sentence or two, believe it or not, at the beginning. And I think, you know, that's, as a writer, that's what you do, is you kind of put down a marker, right? And then you plant the seed and you're like, okay, I know this is important, but it's hard. So we did go back and forth quite a bit about that. And I kept saying, I want more, you know, what is, you know, give us all the senses, right? Like, what does it look like? What are the colors? What are the sounds? And then that just so beautifully tied into the piano lessons at the end, which just felt like a gift.
Interesting.
At that moment, I was bit nervous, I must admit, Ashish, that we are stuck at the second chapter of the book. And it is taking like hours and hours and hours, right? And when will we move forward? And that chapter came out to be the reader's favorite chapter.
Oh, wow.
At this moment. Most of the readers are commenting about the grandfather and all the family dynamics that are shown, and even the leadership. There are hidden meanings, as we touched upon the animal shelter chapter. But as I said, last week I got a feedback from the reader She said, I know exactly what everyone needs.
Interesting.
To a common plain reader, it would look like it's simple reading, plain reading, and just a story. But the author's mindset behind every sentence has to be seen to be believed. So that's the reason I kind of say that even for the literature lovers, they may like to find the author's mindset behind writing.
Okay. So, Lakshmi, while you are on that, your book's description says about a true reflection of the passion for an American dream. What does that actually mean? And you can elaborate on that.
Yeah. I mean, I won't go into much detail, but whenever we see, at least I experienced my immigrant friends, they are in America, but there is not an honest acceptance of the dream for America. That, oh, either we are here on our own or it's a choice, we have, or whatever, And I don't want to criticize any of them. But I like to believe that I want to show my honest reflection of the American dream. I am honest. I was honest. I am honest. Today, I'm proud that I'm in America. And also I am proud that I come from India. It's a East and West synthesized together. Now, specifically about the story, how I demonstrated it in a fun way, I'm standing in Hyderabad, outside a mailroom, right, in our office. There's a taxi waiting for me to take me to the airport. Next day, I have a flight to come to America, 2007, 2008. And our passports are missing. Our visas are missing. The sweat is dripping down. It's a month of June. You can imagine how the summers look like there. I'm crying. I am begging before the mailroom clerk that please find us the passport. The status shows that the passports are delivered. You say I don't have it, and I have a flight the next morning. I could have taken a flight a week later, right? What would happen? Not a big deal, right? But it shows the desperation to land in America. So that's my true reflection of the passion for America through a very simple, fun little story. Ultimately, we found the passports. He was looking for G for Garg mailbox. He was looking for K for Kant mailbox. And then they found it in L for Laxmikant mailbox.
Oh.
Right? But those 10 to 15 minutes were nightmare for me. That, oh my God, I have a flight and I have to go.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you, Lakshmi, for sharing that. Now, this is something that either of you can know me or Theresa. How does this book flow? I mean, why should any reader read this book? What is in it? I mean, other than autobiography, what's there in it? Maybe you can talk about Lakshmi. You can talk about your wife, or Theresa and Noemi. You can talk about it. How is she involved with this book?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start us off. I'll talk a little bit about the flow of the book just to give the readers a general idea of what they're going to find. So like we mentioned before, it starts off on December 23rd of some year. And we were facing this really horrific moment. And as a family, it's a very defining moment for all of us. It kind of changes things around, even within our nuclear 4 of us family. And it builds some sort of suspense for the readers to enjoy and try to figure out what's going on. And from there, it just essentially flashes back into my father's childhood, going into his teenage years, growing up, and then getting married so that my mom finally comes into the picture. We come into the picture. We're born. He completes his CA after I was born. So there's a little bit of an education aspect coming in. And then kind of just moves forward from there until we land here in America. A couple of years go by, and then we full circle to the beginning of the book. And then from there, it starts coming closer to the present, and I think ends a little bit into last year.
Excellent. Derek, do you want to add anything to that, or Lakshmi?
I think my sister touched on pretty much everything. It's basically a flashback. The entire book is a flashback. And I think I can touch upon how there are like hidden motifs in the book. Like music is a big one. The book starts with music with my grandfather, and it ends with music with my dad and me carrying on that legacy. And there's tons of hidden motifs like that throughout the book.
Yeah, on that note, since Darcy touched upon music, and I'll touch upon my wife's angle as well. There was a 70-year-old, my grandfather, and 7-year-old me. He's sitting with me on the pump organ and teaching me Sare Gama Pada Ni. And then 35 years later, my daughter's teacher, 70-year-old guru in piano, 43-year-old me sitting with that guru and learning the ABCD. And there were lighter moments when my grandfather was teaching me mathematics tables. I'm taking rides on his legs. And then this guru, my daughter's teacher, he one day poured a couple of drinks, from the hidden shelves behind his music shelf. And I was surprised that he has a hidden bar inside, and he poured the drinks, and we are enjoying the drink. So those are defining moments, right? And the connections. Coming on my wife's angle, wife is such an important part of person's journey. And I have spent most of my time with my wife. Right? I'm 48 years old. 25th anniversary we recently celebrated. So obviously I have spent most of the time, if with any one person, it's my wife, alongside my mother. So I consider my mother and wife to be the parallel paths on my journey. My mother, as Noemi touched upon, she could have lived a comfortable life in Bathinda, but she came to Delhi to live in that animal shelter with me. And then my wife, she came from a slightly richer family, I would say, versus the family that I came from. And I don't know if I told you, but I did my chartered accountancy, and CA, you know how hard it is, right, in India, after my marriage. So I got I got married, and the next 3 to 4 years, I did my chartered accountancy, and my wife sacrificed the prime years of her life, supporting me during that process. I remember an incident when, I was doing an article clerkship as a chartered accountant student, right? And my wife's all marriage outfits were worn out in a couple of years. You bring a lot of marriage outfits, and they're all gone. And we were hardly making both ends meet. And one of my old friends visited our home. We couldn't offer him a good couch to sit on, and they were expecting a better status in us because I was supposedly the better student, academically or whatever. But we welcomed them in worn out outfits. And then that very day, I took her to a shop and to buy her a sari. And the shopkeeper showed us saris. He said 6,000 rupees. We are talking about $100 of today. And that was probably my 3 months budget or a couple months budget those days. And my wife looking at me saying no. Why did she say no? Right? That defines her sacrifice.
I would agree. Yes.
So I would stop there before going further into the story, but that defines my wife.
Yeah, I mean, without her support, I don't think you could have achieved what you have achieved. Her support definitely matters a lot. So now coming to Darcy and Noemi, Tell us how the feedback that you have received so far in your generation about the book.
Speaking for my generation, one specific comment comes to mind, and it's my friend who basically quoted a lyric from a famous song by Frank Sinatra. It's called New York, New York, and I think that really sums up what the book did for her. And the lyrics were, "If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York."
Thank you for sharing that, Theresa.
Yeah, and then
Now,
I'll go ahead and share a little bit something as well that I've heard. The big catch, I don't have any big catchphrases, but the words that stuck out to me from some of my friends who read the book is that they thought it was very eye-opening. And I found that interesting. I was like, how so? And they said that, no, I mean, like, we are grown up, we come from well-to-do families now, and we have grown up with certain kind of privilege. And for them, it was eye-opening to kind of see what life was like back then. What were the kind of hardships and challenges that were faced by people who were at our age back then. And going off of that, I think they started to appreciate their parents' struggle even more. It wasn't just them connecting with my dad's story and appreciating his success, but also started to think about, oh, like my parents must have gone through some of the similar things. So, like sitting down with their parents and having conversations about their background and culture and where they're coming from. I think those were some of the things that they highlighted.
Thank you, Naomi, for sharing that. So, Lakshmi, we are at the end of the hour, but we can add a couple of more minutes to this session. Tell us quickly about the challenges that you faced during the writing of this book, and what's your favorite part of it?
Yeah, so favorite part, no author can provide a favorite part. Every single word is written from my heart, and we have put in blood in it, right? So
Right.
everything is favorite, but I'll tell you one moment. A challenge in any non-fiction book, the biggest challenge is how not to hurt the feelings of loved ones, because you are telling a truth.
Right.
You are telling your story. Maybe it could be a sibling you may hurt, right? Maybe it's your parent who may hurt. Maybe your wife or your children may get hurt. Or maybe your best friend may get hurt. So that's where Beth was our pillar, right?
Oh, okay.
How to craft the wording in a way that you tell the truth. The real literature leaders may understand what's going on, but nobody gets hurt. Favorite part is, as I said, my daughter went to University of Michigan, and we are dropping her to the Michigan, back in 2016, 2017, when she started her college. And she's carrying all my money away, because you can imagine how expensive those schools are. And I was just 7-8 years in the States. And my younger daughter, her sister, Theresa, she enjoying that moment thoroughly when my elder daughter is growing up. So I want to show the love and affection of the siblings, and also want to give that message back to our society, that siblings should have enjoyed each other's success. Right? We should all enjoy each other's success.
Agree.
And you will get a peace. You will get happiness in life. You will start doing well. I started doing well when I started enjoying the success of others.
Agree. So we have come to the end of this hour. Now, before we end, any last few words that you would like to talk about, Lakshmi, that we might have missed for our readers or our viewers, and give some a little more information about how they can get the book and how they can proceed with that.
So our book is available on Amazon. You can just type the title of the book or my name or anybody's name out of 4 of us, and you will find the book. And the book is available in print copy as well as Kindle copy. Audiobook I already touched upon. They can reach out to us directly, and we'll be happy to share the password on our website, which can give them access to the audiobook. So that's how they can get the book. In a couple of months, we are putting a beautiful kiosk in a Quaker Bridge Mall in Princeton, New Jersey, where my daughter will be, running the kiosk for the entire summer to showcase the book and to showcase the audio experience and everything. So that's pretty much about it. But people who want to see themselves in the book, people who are worried about getting 98 out of 100 in the exams, people who want to get some sort of, especially the American population who want to see the sneak peek into Indian villages, because a lot of time Americans, they go to Hyderabad, Delhi, Mumbai, see the big picture, right? All fancy things without looking at the countryside. They can see that countryside unfiltered view through the book. And similarly, India, right? Media speaks something about America, but sometimes that's not true, right? They can get a real picture of America that we have polished in this book.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Lakshmi. Beth, do you have anything that I might have missed to ask you that you would like to say?
Just as Lakshmi was speaking, I was also reminded of the scene that he wrote the very first day in New York in the States. And I think it's a good extension of what the family was saying, how to show really the change in place and in mindset, but while also holding true to yourself and where you're from. And I think that scene in particular does that really well. I think it was in a Walgreens, am I right? In the shopping mall.
Yep.
Walgreens. That's such a pivotal moment in the book, and really touches on everything that we've talked about, all the themes. And I would encourage you to spend some time there.
Thank you very much, Beth. And Naomi, Deresi, if you guys have anything that you would like to talk about that we might have missed, please, if you can share that.
Yeah, so I just quickly want to touch upon the fact that we really finalized this book during the middle of COVID. So COVID brought a lot of bad things, but for our family, it brought one good thing. Not only were we spending time together, but we produced the book as well as the audiobook during those months.
That's amazing. That's a very good utilization of your time. That's awesome. Deresi, do you have anything?
I think pretty much my dad, my sister, and Beth, you pretty much said everything I would have said. We hope that everyone will read the book, listen to the audiobook, leave reviews on Amazon, and we just hope you enjoy the experience.
Thank you very much. So with that, we come to the end of our show. Thank you very much, all of you, for sharing your experiences about this book. And as you already mentioned, it's a very motivational book, and not just motivational. It has a story, it has a thriller. It's a suspense thriller, and it will basically help all our viewers to enjoy the book because of this conversation that we have had. And also another thing I wanted to mention to all our viewers is this session will be staying on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel as well. So you please go ahead and share this with your family and friends so that more people come to know about this book, and that is how they can enjoy this book. And if you have any questions, feel free to either reach out to us on Bharat FM, or you can directly put your comments into this session that we have had on the Facebook page, and somebody will definitely get back to you with any answer, any question that you have. And again, as Lakshmi mentioned, the book is available on Amazon. That is another place where you can put your comments and reviews as well. All right. So with that, thank you very much, all of you. We come to the end of our show. Next time, we will be present again on Bharat FM with another Decoding Victory session. Until then, goodbye. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, welcome and adab. You are listening to Bharat FM, a one of its kind, multilingual, eclectic provider of entertainment, information, and news to Indian Americans. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Bharat FM airs shows out of Cincinnati, Chicago, and Phoenix. We take pleasure in our ability to cater to your bhakti, chusti, sphurti, shakti, and masti needs with our audio and visual shows. Check out bharatfm.com for our online program schedule and archives. I'm sure the content will definitely tickle your senses. Tune in via the 24-hour web streaming on bharatfm.com or via the Bharat FM app. More information can be procured at 513-488-5070.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.